Hey everybody, welcome back to another awesome episode of X's for Show. You can find us on all your social. X's for Show. As for me, I'm Nico Action, and you can check me out at Nico Action. Who knew?
And I'm TK. You can find me at TK Elemental. Sorry.
Ooh. And I'm your producer, Kevo, and you can really find me at Kevo Really.
Well, we here today have convocated, what a great way to say all of that, to talk about some Ghost Rider. And, and I'm so excited to talk about Ghost Rider because last episode we kind of talked about like your key Ghost Riders, right? Like that
we did the Kale family intro. We're talking Johnny Blade, who's gonna show up in a Fox Ghost Rider film as like a main character. The
Coppolas, as they were.
There it is.
The family of the Ghost Rider. So,
and it's funny because we're still kind of half talking about that family in a really big way because Ghost Rider can't ever get out of its own way.
It just can't.
I'm stoked about this branch. This is a really good. This is the most passionate one. Like I almost was like, Nico, we're not even going to do this episode. I'm just going to stare into the camera and appeal to Marvel that let me write this. I feel so bad. There's so much gold in this block that we're going to talk about.
Gold Riders.
Just really good conceptual stuff. And then the third block is, I think, some necessary modernization, but it kind of doesn't. I'm still waiting for it to go anywhere. And so the first block of stuff, it's like, this is just the intro Ghost Rider stuff that kind of sucks a lot of the time. This is like, there's so much really good stuff and potential here, but it's just been paved over entire. Like this is a buried city of Ghost Rider stuff. It kind of blows my mind. Sorry.
No, absolutely. I'm just excited to jump in and agree with you. It sometimes feels like when you're looking at like canon, right? They say to you, but what you didn't know was before the book of the origin, there was the book of the before. And then, a couple of years later, they revealed to you that before the book of the before, there was the non-book, this collection of ideas that everybody, if they came together, would magically appear. And then before that, there was the whisper. And like, it goes on forever. It sort of feels like they did that with Ghost Rider in reverse. They said, by the way, after the book of nonsense in the 90s, you get the book of canon. And that runs 2006 to 2015-ish, and then never mind.
Yeah, then they just are like, none of that happened or matters. And it's so weird coming from a X-Men lore, knowing everybody's like character background, like they're a friend where you can recite like, oh, then he went to middle school here and we met in 92 when this thing happened. And
so
he had
one time he had lunch with Cypher. And
they had this huge fight. One time they had that mini and stuff gets paved over, but there's so many characters for whom it's, for instance, never really talked about how abusive to Joanna Cargill Magneto was at a certain point in X-Men history. And then you come back for Sword and they're just kind of like bros. Though you can still make it work. If I decided I'm going to write X-Men tomorrow and I need to address that time that he almost killed her by putting a laser in her eye, I can get there. I can
though.
Right. I can write that. With Ghost Rider, I don't think there's any. You would have to do incredible work to get from what we're talking about today to why what we are talking about today is not regularly referenced as part of the rules for how Ghost Riders work from 2011 onwards.
I can't help but agree with so much of what you're saying. And it's funny because, you said coming from a Claremontian place. Yeah, well, who the fuck doesn't? You know what I mean? So like, I'm with you. That's my understanding of comic books. It's X-Men. So then I'm spending a lot of time and they're not going to show right because they are just exactly the wrong color for it. But I have Hal Jordan here.
Oh yeah, your Green Lanterns.
I have my tiny Green Lantern, and then of course I have my boyfriend, tiny little Sinestro.
He's showing up perfectly. Not a hint of green on that one.
He's perfect, right? Sinestro is. I am obsessed with him from his first appearance. He's sort of like, do you know why I'm always going to beat you, Hal Jordan? I'm going to fucking kill people because I'm gay for you. It's amazing, right? Anyway,
I got my Vincent Price mustache.
Oh God, right? Looking like Charlie Brown out to destroy the universe. But one of the things that I love about it is, this version of Green Lantern first appears in 59. By 62 or 63, you've got Green Lantern, Sinestro, Star Sapphire, the Corps. You have way more than just Abin Sur. You've got like Tomar Ray. You've got it's not Kilowog, but like you've got Green Lanterns. And
as you were saying to me, like, because I was like, so when in the 80s or 90s does Oa show up?
Yeah.
And you were like, nope, it's like 59.
Yeah, it's like literally in the first 4 fucking issues. And like, so are the Guardians, those little blue bitches. I love them. They're so great. Nice guys. They all look like Mr. Feeney. So, anyway, I want Tori to read Green Lantern real bad, as she says in the chat. Hey, Tori, and hey, Tasty Cake.
Tori, I want you to read Ghost Rider.
Yeah, well, if she reads Kushala, we'll never get her back.
That's true.
But, so I bring it up because Green Lantern, okay, look, the canon is all wrong. Like, they repeatedly change everything as they go, and like, Star Sapphire, so it can become a core. They have to turn her gem into the battery that powers all the rings. Like, it's ridiculous, right? Ghost Rider doesn't even have that. It's not even like they say, oh, okay, well, we've got the tinder and the kindling and some matches, and so we can make this fire from the pieces of Ghost Rider. They go, well, that's already a lit fire, and that's a bunch of gasoline. Fucking throw it out. We can do this with Flint. And like every time.
Yeah, they
just do it with Flint.
Completely redo the entire campsite and then relight it again. And so we talked about the origins of Ghost Rider, and then within that first block of coverage that we did, they start to rewrite the myth. Because now it turns out that Johnny, there's a family curse, and Johnny was never part of the family curse. Noble Kale is part of the family curse, and Johnny has a whole other thing going on.
Can I just say that Noble Kale sounds like a type of salad I could order?
I said it last time, so you can say it this time.
Thank God.
And then we come to this run, and Aaron says none of that is true. And not only that, but like, I'm not going to bullshit you. I'm not going to be like, here's why you thought it was true, but that it's not. That's one of the crazy things about Ghost Rider. When somebody comes in and rewrites the canon, they don't go, here's how I tricked you. Here's why you thought it was demons, but it was actually angels. They just go, nope, it was angels. And then when they stop doing it, they don't go, here's how Mephisto tricked you into thinking it was God. They just go, no, it's fucking Mephisto now.
Mm-hmm. And it's my Fisto if you're not careful, okay? I just want to real quick to Tasty Cake's joke of Johnny Come Lately, the new kid in town. I just want you to know, sir, that joke is going to take you out in a blaze of glory if you catch what I'm trying to say. But, I'm kind of a dandy. So Noble Kale salad. So. Now, let me say something, though. We're going to get to that Jason Aaron, Simon Spurrier thing, which, like, can we just give them whole sections of the Marvel Universe? Can, like, Simon Spurrier, Alyssa Wong, and Jason Aaron just be given the symbiote universe and just be done with it?
The only reason I say no is because the symbiotes are so well attended, and I want them to go to Ghost Rider. I want Ewing in the mix for that, too. I have thoughts, but also now Aaron's doing this Batman thing. We haven't got a Marvel announcement in forever.
No, but let's also point out what Aaron's doing. That is my entire world. Aaron is doing and I can only describe it as the Man Who Laughs take on Bizarro over in Superman.
Oh, wow.
He is doing like let's get deep into it. Bizarro is a person with feelings. Stop making fun of him. He's not mentally disabled. He's just from another world. Why do you treat him this way? Mm-hmm. He's doing like the real Bizarro pitch, and I could not be more excited. That's
fantastic. I hate it for me because I would rather he be over at Marvel, getting his just desserts after all the work that he put in. And none of this, nothing that we're talking about today, even touches on getting us to Robbie Reyes.
Oh, no, not at all.
Which to me is just absolutely effing wild, because that's a whole other set of lore that doesn't tie into this. And crazily, after all is said and done, even with the Ghost Rider's messy mythos of how it all works, we still don't understand how Robbie's Ghost Riderdom would factor into any of this.
He's not really a proper spirit of vengeance, and
no,
the ways that he is are so tenuous. We're gonna get into it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, but before we can get to all of those amazing runs, and we're gonna get to, so everybody is entitled to one problematic fave that is so problematic, you just put your hands up and go, "No, I accept. I'm gonna keep reading anyway, no matter how fucked up it is." But
I know let's be real here. You're entitled to as many as you want. You just can't talk about it publicly or you'll get in trouble. Don't lie. We've all got like 10 and we're just keeping them to ourselves, and that's forever where they shall stay.
You just got to try to keep it healthy. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah, we just don't talk about it. We've all got things where we're like, hate to admit it, totally love this person.
Garth Ennis is one of the greatest writers of our age.
I know you think, and what's funny is like, I know you think that, and you have some valid reasons why, and I don't always agree. It's very funny when it's like, you're passionate about it, but also very understanding of the fact that like, not a great guy, problematic dude. And then I am not the least bit passionate about any of his stuff that you think is good. Like, I don't think it's bad. I just don't think it's that great. And I recognize that he is... But this was one of the ones where I was like, bummer that this guy sucks, because this could have been... his problematic stuff isn't actually the problem for this...
No, it's American history.
It's American history. It's American history, like deep American history, but it's also American history of the last 20 years, where less, this is 2009. We still didn't quite have a grip on. We still don't have a grip on the fact that like, if you're telling the story, like the ancestral story of a black person's experience in America, Garth Ennis doesn't get to write that. He can reference it. There can be characters, but if it's deep, like this character's history, suffering in America, a person of color should be writing that.
Yeah, a white Scotsman, not the guy.
Yeah.
So, and before we can even get to that, I designed this in a way that only I could be happy. And we have to talk about Ghost Rider. Yeah, right?
Well, you make us happy, so it's a cycle.
Speak for yourself, Kevo.
Duh.
I'm over there.
Oh, you're right. We have to talk about this one first. I really was like, no, Nico, cut this out. We're not cut this out of the episode. We're not doing it.
And then you read it?
No, this was after I read it. I was like, midway through reading it, I was like, nothing could make me care about this. And the blessing and curse, the reason I was like, don't say anything, is because it's these 3 issues and absolutely nothing else, which is also why I was like, no, absolutely say something. It's these 3 issues and nothing else.
So we're going to talk for a minute about a project that Marvel felt passionately about for 6 seconds and then changed their mind. They did 3 minis called Before 4, which they were the 3 before 4, of course. And it was before 4 Reed Richards, where he's kind of like a war scientist. Don't know what that is. Then there's before 4 Grimm and Logan, and it's Ben Grimm and Logan serving in Korea Nam, because don't look too closely.
Which I was going to say makes 0 sense, because in Before 4 The Storms, they have 90s to 2000s level computer technology, and they are like late teens.
So, and then we have the storms, which I need to just say, Kevo, could you put the cover up for the first book in the script? What I need to say about the storms as a logo is they literally reuse this for Storm not too far after this.
Yeah.
They just cutify it. It's
That's wild.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I think when I think about this miniseries is they were trying to give us that Sue Storm and Johnny Storm were always, fantastic. Oh, I didn't even think about that. They were always like fantastical. They were always amazing people, and they always had these amazing adventures. In this one, it's kind of like, what if they met vaguely a Ghost Rider and also vaguely fought vampires? It is
no. What it is they are. What if they had adventures? What if before even getting cosmic ray powers, they were just two kids prone to adventures? And here's one such adventure
where they fight vampires
and meet a Ghost Rider. Meet a Ghost Rider that lasts for 13 minutes
and doesn't even turn into Ghost Rider. I mean, he never gets the flaming head or anything. He just has some like artifacts of vengeance and like bills of sales of terror and stuff. So he's not even really threatening. His name is Max Parrish. He is a pleasantly attractive man.
He is not a painter.
He is not a painter. One of the things that I think is interesting is when the creators of Marvel Comics in general say, okay, I'm doing a Fantastic Four story, right? And Marvel's like, great, what's in your Fantastic Four story? And they're like, you meet a Ghost Rider named Max Parrish, and they go, hold on, I'm really excited about that, but that looks a lot like this previous pitch you gave us for a Ghost Rider named Max Parrish that we said no to. And he goes, no, it's totally different. This one, they fight Dracula. And the editor goes, right, but in that original pitch, it's Max Parrish, the Ghost Rider, fighting Dracula. And the writer goes, no, but this one has the storms.
It makes no sense why this would exist at all. I do love the Bacalo Dodson wannabe art of the era, not quite Joe Mad. This guy must have done issues of Generation X I'm not specifically thinking of. It's very of the time.
Oh, yeah. So the other thing I will say that this book provides us is a sort of question about how we can understand what made a story at the time. Now, this is something TK and I have engaged with about Spider-Girl, that there's times where they're like, she's like, I just turned 15 and I'm feeling superlicious. And like, what they really mean is her boobs are about to be on display. And for the most part, they keep it kind of attractive. But TK, you have some images.
Yeah, this is like the opposite of that. Like Tom DeFalco recognized that a young woman would at some point like reference her own biology and the fact that she is becoming a woman. This is like for absolutely no reason, even in the script, somebody decided to show the porniest what the fuck is Johnny Storm doing bottom left here with his one tit out? And it's, oh my gosh, it's so needlessly sexual.
And he's supposed to be like 15 here.
Yes. The other images, he's like grabbing Johnny from behind and covering his mouth, but he's also hitting on Sue, who is not 18. Oh, she is, because she's at ESU. But still, she's 18. I
just want to say, like, he is not shown to act or be that age. And that's even something that we're kind of talking about. He is drawn to clearly be very sexual. And but that belongs to the character, not the age of the character. They're writing this character as though he is this timelessly 18, 19 years old. And they're sort of throwing away the idea of age. He's not drawn to be young, nor is he drawn to be, or nor is he written to behave young.
No, panel to panel, it changed. Like, I think he looks like a child with his in the image with his nipple out. I think that is so weird that somebody did that.
I would like to draw attention, though, to the fact that if anyone would like to try to argue, oh, it's innocent, the thought bubbles are specifically him thinking, wonder if Cam's finished changing yet. Wonder if she's changing now, actually. Wonder what she's wearing right now.
Yeah.
It is explicitly sexually charged on top of the art. So it's not even like it's just incidentally he's changing. Exactly.
Oops, no, all sexual.
And Max Parrish has... I cut it out because I like really just wanted to focus on these weird, like, vaguely, like, all way too sexual images the artist has drawn, even though there's just no need for them. But Max has just said something sexual about Sue outside of this panel. And Johnny absolutely cannot be 18. I think Sue is just 18, maybe generously 19, but Johnny is, there's just no mathematical way Johnny isn't a minor here. So it's just weird to even have any of this.
Especially here on the cover. Yes, very much, absolutely. He looks like 15.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the book offers nothing to the Storms. The book offers nothing to Dracula. It doesn't offer anything to
Ghost Rider mythology.
At all.
Max Parrish never comes back. There's a character we're going to talk about in just a minute as part of all this named Knuckles O'Shaughnessy, who like just
my fucking hero. You speak his name.
He's
like
so good.
Him.
I love him so much, but like he pops up again. Like Aaron made a character and kept him, and there there's a lot of references post Aaron just to how many Ghost Riders there are, and you will see even if they're not identified by name or like pointed to directly, you will get art that references Ghost Riders that have been established. Max Parrish, these 3 issues. Like I said, he's Ghost Rider in like a few pages of one of them. And that's it. Max Parrish never comes back. Nobody references Max Parrish as a person or as a Ghost Rider ever again. Which is why I was like, we should just not even do this.
And I do, I it's not like I said I want to do an entire episode about.
No, I know, and like of course I understand that the argument for why we wouldn't do it, but we're covering all of the Ghost Riders, and part of Ghost Rider mythos is that you literally can and often do make anybody a Ghost Rider whenever you want, and the unfortunate, upsetting thing about how Marvel treats Ghost Rider mythology is that you can do that. And it cannot matter, and there can be no accounting for it. Yet Ghost Rider can continue, and there can be what would still be considered solid runs. But there's something missing from the fact that nobody cares the way they do with X-Men. You can't. Explodey Boy was like one joke for a random, mini
series.
Yeah. And then he got like the most beautiful, heartbreaking Empire crossover moment that just like represented everything beautiful and wonderful about the Krakoan era. So the point being, like, if you throw somebody out like that in X-Men, there's a virtual certainty that at some point somebody will bring them back and they'll show up again. With Ghost Rider, sometimes people are just like, I do whatever the fuck I want. It's Ghost Rider. And it doesn't ever have to come back. There's no fans to get upset.
Well, because like we're going to talk about a Ghost Rider that is debuted in one 6-issue mini that's a sequel to another 6-issue mini. And then there's, I want to say 34 Ghost Riders introduced in 16 issues.
But then those 34 are show up regularly. I shouldn't say regularly, but they show up again as background Ghost Riders.
Yeah, they're like familiar Green Lanterns. They're like, they're like familiar people on a star bridge. Like,
again, I point to Knuckles. Knuckles shows up again, and he is that kid that is Ghost Rider.
You don't talk enough about Spring-Heeled Jack.
You're right. I don't.
There's a gaslight serial killer Ghost Rider that runs around London.
Yep.
Okay,
who's very
that's
clearly
my
supposed to
boy.
be Jack the Ripper, but not, because he just kills. He kills Jack the Rippers.
I can't wait. Okay, so let's
whatever
talk
happened
about
to Jackdaw.
Oh, well, Captain Britain became Betsy, and so now it's too good for Jackdaw. So let's take a look at two minis that are a little bit hard to talk about. You know, I want to say that The Road to Damnation, the Ghost Rider miniseries by Garth Ennis, as well as Trail of Tears, this is labeled like one 12-issue thing. I mean, I know it's the same writer, but I don't understand how this is the same. Like, I don't know the through line, and I read them both in the same damn day. So, like, it's not even that, like, oh, well, maybe you didn't read it close enough to the actual source material, my friend. No, my friend, I read it consecutively. And I don't understand the connection here, but what I will say is if a person of color, or perhaps, and I say this like kind of not menacingly, but maybe an American had written Trail of Tears and known that they were not just bringing up slavery in terms of the portrayal of an original black character being kind of pitted against an all-white town, but to use the term Trail of Tears and to not apply it to the plight of the native people of America seems double insensitive. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure that in Glasgow they've got problems, but they don't have these. So I'm not saying that Garth Ennis has no room to write about anything. He's also Irish. He's not Scots. I don't, my apologies tremendously. I've read every page of his Vertigo universe. I should know.
You're not a geographer.
I know. I'm just a bad fan. But then again, he did mangle the history of my country. So I guess one mistake can hopefully be forgiven.
I mean, it's Trail of Tears, but it is about a black man being a Ghost Rider, which again, it's just on the border, because it's kind of not about him. It's about a white man this black former slave who bought his own freedom and then had a family and owned a farm. He finds a white man who is in the midst of the Civil War still and has experienced such trauma that is actually kind of mystically linked to hell. This white man Travis has experienced a piece of hell, and
we all know a Travis.
Caleb, this self-freed slave, has also experienced the hell of war and also this same hell. So he helps this white man and he takes care of him over an extended period of time until he is healed from his PTSD and can go on his own way. The white man returns 2 years later. Caleb is dead. His family is dead. Their farm has been taken over. And Travis, this white man, then goes to seek justice. Now, that's not the worst thing ever. Following Travis isn't the worst thing ever. The Civil War stuff isn't the worst thing ever. Trail of Tears is an offensive name given what they talk about. But also, it kind of hinges on the experience of a black man from the perspective of a white character as written by a white man. And the only thing that saves it from, like, we have to throw this in the dumpster is that there's not a lot of thank God for the white savior. Otherwise, this would have gone wrong. It's pretty much this Ghost Rider, Caleb, this black man, is following basic Ghost Rider rules and is entitled.
Ghosts, vengeance.
Yeah, vengeance. He's kind of entitled to the vengeance. Inevitably, as with all Ghost Riders, the seeking out of vengeance sort of blurs and crosses lines of who gets hurt in the wake of the Ghost Rider's need to go after a particular person. It's all okay ish. There's no moment where I'm like, this is so offensive, we shouldn't even talk about it. But this is actually it's a good concept, and it's unfortunate that a black person could not write the history of this particular Ghost Rider and tie it to their own experience. Because what it just feels like is a white man remembered that black people also exist in American history, where Ghost Riders also exist. So what can we do with that?
And it almost makes the response that Aaron and Spurrier had, creating an entire system of Ghost Riders that react to the cultures of the world, where why would you think that all people that want vengeance are just kind of white guys that believe in, like, you know, Holy Trinity Jesus, right? Why is that your understanding of hell and revenge? So, you know, I also am not a big fan of Clayton Crane, and that is a thing.
Yeah.
I'm not a big Sonia Obach guy either.
I think this is my favorite place that I have seen Clayton Crane's work, because the other big thing, I think, again, if you're an X-Men fan, is Necrosha, where I think
Obach.
You know, I think there are a few like splash pages in Necrosha where it's just like, this is gorgeous. And it's really cool. There are some moments with Celine, and there's some moments of like real death energy stuff where you're like, that's cool. They did it. It's like a painting. It's the same thing with Simone Bianchi. There are times where you're like, this hits, man. But panel to panel, issue to issue, over 6 or more, you really start to be like, visually, I can't anchor myself. And you're not doing this for a story where being unanchored is feasible.
I love almond cookies, but you know what I don't do? I don't suck on almond paste. And like, that's kind of how I feel about this.
Yeah.
This is beautiful art, but fuck, it gets hard to look at after 6 issues.
Yeah.
And that's something that people used to be like, oh man, I wonder why Greg Horn doesn't do interiors. You know, he's Cheesecake. Well, there's a couple of books out there with Greg Horn interiors, and you quickly begin to understand why. It just winds up looking like a picture book.
Yeah.
It kind of loses some comic quality. If we were talking Hellblazer, I would... Man, I could never stop talking about Garth Ennis on Hellblazer. If we were talking Garth Ennis on Punisher, I need a couple of years.
I was going to say, that Punisher run is kind of similar to this. It's really good, but it is missing...
An editor that would stop them from having a morbidly obese head-transferred transsexual person?
I mean, on top of a list of other things. Like, it's missing a lot of the cultural context that now we expect. And, you know, there's a lot of people where I would say, I don't blame you in 2009 for not doing the right stuff, but I'm also not going to give it a pass because other people did know.
Yeah, I mean, it was 2009. Britta had already lived in New York.
You just were a privileged white dude who never really had anybody call into question your credentials for writing certain things or choices that you made about characters to a degree where you had to reflect and potentially face consequences. We have all been there. Every single white person, you know, every single cis person. There are always times in which we engaged in some kind of work and we got a free pass despite being really dumb because it's just there was no culture that said question it. And none of us get to go to those things and be like, right, but they're still good. Yeah. You kind of do the best with what you have. And like, I mean, as we were talking about, we don't cover a lot of Ennis specifically because it's kind of platforming what doesn't deserve to be platformed. That's why we haven't done that Punisher run. And
we never will. We'll probably do Hellblazer one day, but because that's doable. And
for sure.
About the troubles.
Yeah.
And you know, everybody's so into Joanna that I get to do as much John as I want. So.
I also, you know, Hellblazer is a good example because it is British. You know, it's there is a real degree to which I think Ennis is a particular person that you can point to and be like, great writer, can write broadly any culture he wants. You know, I don't need all of his stuff to be distinctly American.
Right.
This actually does. Ghost Rider Trail of Tears actually does need to be American.
Yeah,
if
it's not like Ghost Rider Downing Street at high tea.
Well, yeah, or, you know, if it's just like, again, I point to X-Men, if it's just the X-Men fighting somebody, I don't particularly care if it's a British person or an Irish person writing them, but if it's the X-Men take a road trip, they do Scarlet's Walk through the American experience. Yeah, I'm sorry, Garth Ennis, you can't do that. Neil Gaiman kind of can, but you can't. That's where we're at.
Blueberry Girl. I do need to just put out there that if the BBC wants to reach out to me and do Ghost Enders, I am really excited to do Coronation Riders.
Ooh, it would be so dry and so erudite and so beautiful.
BBC World Vengeance News. It's just the news.
I was trying to do the only way. I was trying to do the only way is Essex spin, but there's no location besides heaven and hell that really applies.
Hell.
The only way is hell.
Hell. Speaking of the only way is hell, I want to talk about a run of Ghost Rider that is so goddamned good until the final 3 issues that I have. I just don't have a lot of negative things to say about Aaron and Spurrier's Ghost Rider. It's so good beginning to end, man.
It is so good. I will say, same thing, same era. There is some Aaron is clearly having fun, is not being serious, but there is some like women getting called bitches and then getting murdered.
Oh, truly, yes, that's very fair. Thank you.
I mean, it just I noticed it because the run is fantastic, and it is that constant razor's edge that you walk where if characters are treated as like on a pedestal, unbreakable, then there's no consequences, and you've kind of gone too far over to the other side. So female characters have to be in actual peril, and you can't say like just because we want to not refer to tropes of domestic violence and patriarchal violence, we're not going to show these women in conflicting situations. And there's a lot of like, these are badass nuns fighting. There should be some feeling that they could die in the fight. But then editor,
and every one of them's a badass, dude.
Yeah, every single one of them is a badass. But then a whole swath of them get murdered, which even that I'm okay with. Editor, cut out the bitches. Just far and away, harpies would have been fine.
Far and away, the best character in this whole run is one of those characters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sarah, the caretaker,
yep,
is probably my favorite character outside of Kushala and Robbie in all of Ghost Rider.
Yep.
She is every fucking thing, man.
Yep. But yeah, there are a few don't call women bitches and then murder them, and just be careful with your other American cultures that you're referencing. It's not so bad. And again, it does do that thing of like, there's no Aaron writing a black person centrally for many issues with no context of the black experience. They are great characters that he has created that I actually am like, well, now I would love to see a black writer get to go in and write those characters.
Oh, there are so many incredible black writers at Marvel who already work within the scope of the horror verse that Marvel produces. You know, a guy like Victor Laval is just geared for a book like Ghost Rider, rife with things like chains and American history and vengeance. That's a book that I think truly belongs in the hands of a powerful black author.
Yeah. The African Ghost Riders we meet, the Chinese Ghost Riders that we meet, they're there and they should be there because the whole point is they do exist. Of course, Ghost Rider isn't just an American thing. And that's totally spot on. I'm glad Aaron brought them into existence. And now the reason that I'm so passionate about like this era and my frustration with the era that we're covering on the show versus where we are in Ghost Rider today is that all of these characters should exist and be available, and instead we've pigeonholed ourselves so far that we don't even have Robbie right now. We just have Johnny and like vaguely Kushala, but we'll get to it.
So one of the things I love about this image is I'm going to pretend that everybody that I'm about to mention is in it somewhere.
Yeah.
In this period of books, which spans roughly Ghost Rider Volume 6, number 21, from March 2008 through roughly the end of this era in end of 2009, we are introduced to such an unbelievable roster of Ghost Riders. Now, some of them get like in-depth time, and sadly, some of them are little more than just a frame. In addition to the additional version of Vengeance, I could have lived without Kowalski, thanks. We get Shoba Miza, Nima, Bai Gujing, Molek. We get an English Knight Ghost Rider, a Norseman, a Maori Ghost Rider. We get a Sumburu Ghost Rider, a Cossack Ghost Rider, a Thule Ghost Rider. Then we get some named ones with some weird shit, and most of them seem to love killing people. Love it. We have my hero, Spring-Heeled Jack, who, by the way, is all the way over on the right in the front. He's the greatest. Struel Peter, Samurai Ghost Rider. We have a first or post-flood, biblical flood, by the way, Ghost Rider. Baron Skullfire, whose name is that cool, yes. We have Marinette Boachich. We have an Aztec Ghost Rider, a Matador, a Druid. We have an Inuit, a Shark Ghost Rider. It's just a big shark, right? Phantom Ghost Rider of the Congo. His name is incredible. We have a Ghost Flyer, a Hell Driver, a Devil Rig, Texas Ranger Ghost Rider, a Russian Ghost Rider, the Hellhawk, Frontier Era Ghost Rider, Cowboy Ghost Rider, Philistine Ghost Rider, and of course, Undead G-Man and Knuckles O'Shaughnessy.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Yeah. We established that Ghost Riders exists throughout time and throughout cultures. And there's actually, there's a really beautiful explanation. We are also introduced to lore of how this all happens and why they exist. And we're told that Ghost Riders are weapons of heaven. That they are not actually... I would have been okay with it, except for we've lost it completely today.
But also, they were literally not the weapons of heaven. They were literally the thing that couldn't go to heaven, but couldn't go to hell.
I mean, like I said, I could write it from this without the following 12 years. I could write how that worked.
Yes, but you're fabulous, and I don't feel like Marvel is putting that much fabulous effort in sometimes.
That's the problem. Yes, that is absolutely the problem. In Aaron's run, we established that Ghost Riders are weapons of heaven, and that this is not like we don't establish this. This is something that gets said a lot, not just in Marvel, but everywhere. But just this basic idea that like people of different faiths are seeing the same thing through the lens of their faith. So a Christian person sees the Ghost Rider mythos as having to do with a Christian version of heaven and hell and demons, and Buddhists will see it differently but come to the same end where somebody is a Ghost Rider. And so it is a kind
of Buddhist Ghost Riders.
Well, there is specifically one.
I know.
And she gets quite a lot of reference in time. I mean, she relative to some of the other ones. But we get the establishment of caretakers as well as kind of these keepers of the Ghost Rider knowledge. They're basically if Ghost Riders are slayers, the caretakers are watchers. And Sarah becomes the kind of last caretaker. And
I just want to say her grandfather caretaker is actually like a legitimate character from the...
Oh yeah, I mean, we talked about him in the last... Because he's big in the third
Spirit
volume of Ghost
Vengeance.
Rider.
Yeah, the 90s.
Where Danny Ketch becomes Ghost Rider.
I hate Danny Ketch.
I mean, I would say
Push
I do
Danny Ketch
too.
down a flight of stairs.
I would say I do too, except for the fact that, again, none of this enormous epic story that establishes so much, it just gets paved over.
Oh no! I don't care. I'm so mad at Danny for this.
I mean, I am too, but in that way where I'm like, I want to. The fact that nobody really references this again when Danny shows back up, including now, where it's like, I want to hate Danny in panel, and I want to have more people say like, well, remember the time that you were such an idiot, you almost got heaven and hell destroyed. But I forgive him a little bit because Ghost Rider Danny Ketch Addict really establishes something else that I think is fascinating that has not been brought up again, that is really important, which is that the Ghost Rider power is addicting to Danny. It seems like other people don't have the same relationship to it, but the entire thing is treated very specifically in Ghost Rider Danny Ketch as he is addicted to the feeling and the power that he got from being Ghost Rider. He is strung out, having been abandoned by the power, and he is manipulated by being dosed. They literally say dose many times, by being dosed with Ghost Rider power until he is on the hook and is a servant of Zadkiel, who is given full reign of his powers because he's told, if you don't do what I say, I will take it away. And so, I thought the potent drug addiction metaphor sort of let me forgive him a little bit for being such a idiot.
Yes, but I feel like he would have done it without the drug addiction part.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could definitely make that argument. And I think the unfortunate thing is that would be a great thing to have seen from 2011 until today in the few times that Danny has shown up. And instead, this entire epic is never referenced.
And it's so weird. So the whole story here is basically Johnny and Danny are manipulated alongside everyone else who's ever touched any form of Ghost Rider, essentially, except anybody in the Marvel Universe, into this war between heaven and hell. And like they storm heaven, which Zadkiel has taken over. And, it's this really... Okay, here's what I'm trying not to say.
Yeah.
When you finish Garth Ennis's Hellblazer, you're left very satisfied. And when you finish his Preacher, it's exactly the same story, but much less satisfying. But I mean, literally, the plot of Hellblazer under Ennis is an angel and a demon have a baby. It is the portented thing that will change all of existence, and it has special powers, and people have to work to protect it and make sure that nothing bad happens. The plot of Preacher is an angel and a demon have sex and make a baby named Genesis, which has unique powers, and it goes inside of one guy, and they have to protect it. The plot of this is essentially that without the baby.
You kind of get a baby that they have to protect.
But I mean, it's essentially, what if heaven and hell have to go to war over this magical idea? And it's this exact same thing that I'm so used to at this point. The problem is, in not referencing this, right? What they did was they said, Ghost Rider isn't an idea, it's a pantheon. And then they said that pantheon is going to have its Clash of the Titans. It's going to have its Twilight of the Gods. And now they're pretending, for the sake of continued storytelling, that there was no Twilight of the Gods for the Ghost Riders. And the worry it instills in me more than most is that that's exactly what they're going to do with Krakoa in 6 months. They did something so big that Ghost Rider was never the same again. And that's me mocking myself. But yeah, it's...
But what I will say is... and this is what I was talking about at the start of the episode... X-Men fans will never let you forget. You cannot... that they are even going to move on from Krakoa the way that it seems like they're going to is already... Nobody is super stoked about that. But of course, there will be continuity of like... And then they left the island and somebody will say, remember when we were on the island and things were so good?
I wonder what bad guy is going to buy it and settle on it.
Basically, no one is ever like, remember when Zadkiel tried to take over heaven and thought he had become God? And it was a better alternative that we work with Satan who at the time was not Mephisto, to rebalance the scales than it was to let this rogue angel have the powers of heaven. That simply is never referenced again. And it's unfortunate because we got things like Ragnarok. We got things like Fear itself. What was the one with... Oh, no, that was Fear itself. We have these large mythological... Nothing was ever the same after Ragnarok. They eventually reset the cycle, but they established that they went through their entire mythological cycle till it's Armageddon.
Loki's
and then
never been the same. Odin's never been the same. Valkyrie's never been the same. Thor's barely the same, if the same at all.
This sort of Paradise Lost-esque war of heaven and hell, but it's really mostly just a war of heaven that should be a sort of pseudo-biblical version of what we got with things like Ragnarok in the Marvel Universe. It just never comes up again. And this is, I think, because I had read a lot of this before we were doing this, but piecemeal and kind of the wrong way. This is the first time that I'm a bit soured on the Percy run, because I expect better of him. Aaron is a contemporary. Aaron is writing references to this at the same time that Ghost Rider is coming out. And Percy is a great writer who is a good reader and knows how to pull the references. He's doing it other places. He's doing it in Ghost Rider
We
for other
stand
things.
a reference queen.
We absolutely stand a reference queen, but we require a well-researched queen. And yes. I just feel like for the definitive Johnny Blaze run to basically not talk about this at all, let alone get it back on the board because it's so important, is a real disservice to the only thing that comes close to like literary Ghost Rider. We get literary runs for so many Marvel properties. I mean, this Zdarsky run on Daredevil really is definitive. It is character changing. It is beautiful. It is exploratory. I don't think anything will ever be the same, but regardless of whether or not it is, writers will be colored by it forever. And I feel like that should be true of this Ghost Rider run that Aaron wrote. And yet I'm seeing the writers that should be influenced by it, again, Percy, dead silent.
And I wonder how much of that has to do with the way Marvel handled this run in some regards. First of all, I don't want to be numbers man, but let's be a numbers man, right?
You do want to be numbers, and you love being numbers man.
I do, but I hate that I have to judge the art by the numbers. The first issue of this run of Ghost Rider by Jason Aaron, I just want to get the number right. It's issue 21, I think.
Before this, 20? It was Daniel Way.
And Daniel Way...
It's wild because it's the same volume, but they are, after it's all released, they are treated as separate volumes.
Because Daniel Way had to be removed summarily,
right,
after some real unfortunate comments at a convention.
Right.
So Daniel Way was pulled off of Thunderbolts and this overnight, and Jason Aaron was put on, and so was Charles Soule. Charles Soule got Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
And so then we have this, and it's just a continued number. And then it sort of ends at 35, weird number to end at. It combines a mini series that is clearly a prequel to some of the events going on in it, but came out consecutively, or I guess concurrently with some of the later stuff.
It's an interquel.
Yeah. And then speaking of interquels, there's 3 issues that end the run that have fuck all to do with the run. The run, the high point of that run hits in like 32 or something. And then 33, 34, and 35, one-offs about the Ghost Riders being cool, which are 3 of my favorite issues.
Yeah.
But they make it feel unspecial.
Well, because they know already at this point that they're releasing more minis to complete the story, which I don't actually have a problem with. We're in this kind of interspatial time where, prior to this, we sort of expected runs to be contained and to not go too much into minis and post stories to do their conclusion, but it starts to happen more and more, and now it's something we see all the time. And by the way, if you are interested in reading this, which you should be, the quickest and easiest way is to get the War for Heaven trades. There's 2 of them. It collects the whole story, but you'll see there you get 21 through 26.
And then 2 annuals.
Right. There's 2 annuals in the mix. There's this Ghost Rider Danny Ketch addict storyline. Then we go back to Ghost Rider for 30 to 35. And then we do the Heavens on Fire mini, which closes out the whole thing. And if you look at it from the perspective of the 2 trades, or the Aaron Omnibus, it's solid. The Ghost Rider Aaron Omnibus, I should make clear. It is a solid. You really want the War for Heaven trades because you would miss the Ghost Rider Danny Ketch by Cy Spurrier, which is very good writing. All of this has fantastic art too, might I add. Very interesting choices, unique styles that work together but are distinct. Anyway, it's a really good epic story, but it's just so mishmashy the way it comes together, and where it's published. It just feels like I don't know what anybody was thinking. I mean, it's I can't speculate on decisions that are made today where I have as much knowledge as anybody's going to have, let alone decisions from 12 years ago.
But it does make me question, what if in Uncanny X-Men number 150, Jean Grey came back and she was like, "Oh, no, I'm still the Phoenix, just none of the dark shit." We would be like, and it would have really soured an amazing moment. I wonder how much the cycle of canosity is what's really beginning to hinder the possibility of grand runs. I love you bringing up the Zdarsky Daredevil, but I kind of feel like, the Zdarsky Daredevil requires at least a year to reset. Like, someone else should be Daredevil for a year, not Matt, not Elektra. And we need a minute to breathe.
And I completely agree, and I understand why that's not happening, because we got the rights to put Daredevil back on screen.
Marvel Netflix.
Charlie Cox is ready to go, so no, we're not going to let this go. Ghost Rider is just in the perfect place to be. Nobody cares in the best possible way. It's so funny. Like, I was talking to you offline about just like the places where Marvel could experiment a little bit more. Another great one, and we got something great out of this, but then there was no building on it. Werewolf by Night and like Man-Thing. These are characters that there is lore, there is canonical stuff to go through, but nobody's watching you like a hawk. So you both can do whatever you want and can really pull from whatever you want, and nobody is going to say, "Oh, hey, but I thought." And in the case of Ghost Rider, I get that means that you can ignore the Aaron run entirely and just do, it's a guy possessed by a demon. I get how that's simpler, but we established in the 90s that it was too simple, that the past 20 years of doing that story didn't net us enough. So we got more complex with the mythology, and that was fine, but it was also not very sophisticated. It was very 90s mythology. It was very, how can we make this seem as gruff as possible while still passing the comics code?
I just watched a video where it turns out in 2009 they updated Bomberman to have the explosions would have like acid eat your skin off, and you would scream in pain as you died. And I'm like, it's fucking Bomberman.
Yep. And Ghost Rider is actually the venue for stuff like that you want.
Exactly.
And we got, so we had this 90s build on the lore, which I thought was, having read it now, a valiant attempt, but I understood why it could never be. And we get to Aaron, and this is where somebody really says, okay, if I take all of the elements that have been previously established, but understand that I'm writing for a much more sophisticated audience, what can I do? Somebody should pull from that rather than saying, no, let's reset. Let's just do man and demon and point to recognizable names like Mephisto.
I really hate to be that guy though. Now,
What?
math-wise,
yeah,
this kind of falls around Secret Wars.
Yeah.
So big thing, burn it down. Right now, I feel like everything in the Marvel universe, so okay. Take a step back. Someone said to Aman Vellani, "What do you think about the Marvels bombing? What does that mean for you?"
Yeah.
And she said, "Me? Nothing. Why am I in charge of the movie doing poorly? Box office receipts are the purview of the executives. Just like my job is to act in the film, not theirs. So they shouldn't worry about how to perform. I'm not going to worry about how to sell the movie. I'll worry about acting. And so they don't have to. And they'll worry about the box office." Okay. And the reason I say that, right, is because there is a structure to the organization of how we do these things, right? And to that end, Iman Vellani is out living her best life seeing fucking Colby Smolder's husband in Spam-A-Lot with Brie Larson 2 nights ago. So they're just living it up. What do I do? All my ladies that be living it up, right? I get that stuck in my head 3 times a week. So I bring this up though, because one of the things that does wind up being the situation is when they sit down and they say to Ben Percy, your responsibility right now is to write the best fucking Ghost Rider you can. And he says, okay, big picture. How long am I on this? What are the plans? What do I have to worry about? And they say some version of, in 2024, we kind of have to reset the whole universe because consequences being what they are, we've written ourselves into too many holes in too many books. So we're rebooting. Just write a really good book till then, something that you can get good residuals on the hardcover for. Then the question becomes, did Ben Percy do a bad job writing his book? No. Did Ben Percy do a bad job writing a Ghost Rider canon? Yeah. There's about to be a Green Lantern book that's essentially a magical girl final girls kind of horror story about a Green Lantern in space. That's phenomenal. That's so fascinating. But they're kind of openly like, it's not the core Green Lantern book. It's a fun romp. The goal is to make a good book. The goal is to not make the canon Green Lantern book. That's the difficulty I think we're facing now. These writers are told you can either honor what came before or you can worry about selling copies.
Which I get, and it's true, and I don't want to put it all on Percy to do this. The fact of the matter is, this canon event ended in 2010, 2011?
Something. I'll get it for you in 1 sec.
I'm pulling it up right now, too.
Same.
We are live, so if you guys don't believe us, we definitely are a live show. And this is
yeah.
2010, yeah.
Yeah, 2010. So it's been 13 years, and it really pretty much has not been referenced. Barely Zadkiel's been referenced.
If at all. Yeah.
He's shown up like a couple minor appearances, but this is not just a failing on Percy's part. I go a little hard on him. I am a piece of shit just like my father. When I see somebody who is capable of great stuff, who I see writing really well, and I see them not living up to their potential, which in this case, I think not referencing this is not living up to your potential. I don't particularly care that Ed Brisson didn't do it, because I don't necessarily think Ed Brisson had the potential to write a great Ghost Rider. But what?
I was cautiously pointing at you for yes.
Yeah. I also that run gets a little bit of a free pass because it was unceremoniously discontinued before it could properly wrap up, and then it got like a 1-issue King in Black tie-in to kind of wrap it up. That was a huge mess. So who knows? Maybe the plan was eventually to reference any of this, but I sort of doubt it because all it did was deep dive further into what this like Mephisto situation. Honestly, it's so odd to me that Aaron. I mean, I guess it's not odd to me because Aaron had so much to do in that Avengers run. But the fact that we went to hell and Johnny was the king of hell, I guess is fine because you can be the king of hell and a weapon of heaven. It's so weird to me that right now, having read basically everything, I don't feel as though I am on firm ground in terms of what a Ghost Rider is and where it comes from. The only reason this is so exciting to me is Marvel let me write Ghost Rider. I can fix this. And I can get us a great maxi event, War for Heaven and Hell, like the definitive, everybody's involved.
I would just like to write a book about Kushala and Robbie Reyes recording an album.
I mean, yeah, we can get that in the mix for sure.
I just like the side book. Thank you. He can do all the big heavy lifting.
I was pitching to Nico today to set up the Ghost Riders like the Green Lantern Corps and do a big crossover event where the main book with all of the Ghost Riders is kind of a Paradise Lost-esque exploration of themes. And then there's a solo book for Robbie that is kind of Dante's Inferno. And I just think there is so much here, but at this point, I genuinely don't know. I do not understand, and I don't think anything has properly codified based on everything that came before where the Ghost Rider power originates, who has it originally, and how it works.
And nobody can give me an answer that would satisfy me at this point.
Right.
Because
it would take so much writing.
I've been told this is the definitive answer 15 times.
Yeah.
And the sort of like crash and burn of Zedekiel really reminds me of Regent, who first appeared in Renew Your Vows and then crossed over into Amazing Spider-Man, where we were told that this was going to be the biggest character in the entire Marvel Universe. And altogether across 3 realities, this character has appeared 12 times.
Yep.
So that's just not this character reset reality. And there's examples where it's tough, like in Secret Wars 2. In Civil War 2, there's the character of Ulysses. And, the whole idea is he begins seeing the future, but he begins seeing every future, including possible futures. And at the end of the event, he ascends beyond reality and becomes something totally different and is just gone. We've never heard from him again. You can see the decision there, the design there was write this character out.
Yeah, it would be too much to keep having him around, letting him be a writer's crutch.
But I think Zedekiel was maybe meant to be like a Magneto, a character you could come back to and dig from the well.
Yes.
But ultimately, it sort of has become the Inheritors. Not to keep bringing it back to Spider-Man, but there's not a lot of books at Marvel where there's a million versions of the same character. There's 3 Flashes. There's 100 Green Lanterns. There's 3 Wolverines. There's 100 Ghost Riders. There's, 3.
Except
Captain
now
Marvel.
there's not. Except now they're weirdly buried. They're weirdly in hell.
But we saw them all. They all got summoned to hell for the challenge of the Ghost Rider.
Right, exactly.
3 years ago.
But they're not active. That's why I was saying,
True.
they're weirdly buried. It's just Johnny. Kind of maybe Danny, because people want to write Danny and Johnny, and I'm ripping on Percy here. I love this run. I really do. I love Percy. I hope that's clear. But Percy's not talking about Kushala. Percy's not talking about Robbie Reyes. And once we add those two into the mix, we get back to, okay, is there one Ghost Rider? Are there 10? Or are there 100? Like, what are we doing here? Coughing up a lung. I genuinely, I want there to be an answer, and I think there can be one, and I think it can be a really cool one. I think that this can be a property with real I keep coming back to something that I don't like, but I see the potential for, and I referenced Paradise Lost earlier. This could be their Supernatural.
Okay.
You know, huge hit, went epically for a long time, did heaven and hell stuff. This has all the elements. I think it kind of does need to be more like that than I don't know. Yeah, I got a lot of questions. I got a lot of question marks.
Well, and I think part of what my question marks kind of are is, what is the future of this franchise?
Yeah,
and
we know we're getting a new one now.
And we got a new one today.
We did get a new one today. I did read that Immortal Hulk, and it's wild how this Immortal Hulk run really feels...
Incredible Hulk.
Incredible Hulk, sorry, thank you. Yeah. This Incredible Hulk run really feels spiritually cousined to the Ghost Rider run. Ewing is doing a very similar thing. Bruce is on the road. Bruce is experiencing horror.
No, this one is Philip Taylor Johnson. Ewing's Hulk lasted like 1 year and ended really quickly. That was the one where he was in space. Or that was Immortal Hulk. That was Immortal Hulk. The one in space was Donny Cates, and that one wrapped really quickly. This one is like a new guy.
This? Hold on.
Yeah, this is
who's writing this?
He wrote the. He didn't write the one-shot annual from the
Thank
summer.
you for correcting me. Yes, Philip Kennedy Johnson. Wow, I don't know why I just assumed this was Ewing the whole time.
Well, because he's writing the new Immortal Thor book. And...
Yeah, I'm confusing my Immortals. Wow, this guy has some fascinating credits.
Yeah, he does.
But this is very much. I'm bummed that Hulk is meeting this random Ghost Rider who appears to be a 40s-esque person on like a motorcycle, whatever. Bruce is going through a very similar journey to Johnny, where Americana is mixed in with monsters, and that's what Bruce is dealing with. He's a monster dealing with other monsters in deep America, where Percy's Ghost Rider he's a demon dealing with demonic stuff in deep America. We're going all over the place. I think those are cool ideas. So weird so weird that an editor wasn't like, no, if you're going to do Ghost Rider, you have to connect it to the Ghost Rider that is already on the road right now.
You know, it kind of brings back to Tori's question earlier of what Ghost Rider was that in Daredevil and Echo 1 through 4.
Yeah.
I got to assume it's Johnny because we don't know where Robbie is in reality.
Robbie's literally outside of reality, and they're not bringing him back in a random Daredevil story.
Well, part of the problem is we don't know when that goes still.
That's true.
You know, we don't think it's Danny because Danny's currently weird. You know, so it's kind of got to be Johnny. But then we have this Ghost Rider that we use when we don't have someone more interesting to use. Then is that the right Ghost Rider? And why aren't we making him more interesting? Why is his character so ill-defined that Johnny has barely come up as a person in this whole episode?
Well, and that is in part because we covered him. The way we structured this, it is sort of the introduction of that person as the Ghost Rider. Danny got a little bit of extra coverage for us because his Ghost Riderdom kind of changed. But John and then a reset of being the original Ghost Rider.
But if he's the lead, shouldn't he have had something about him in this run that we had to say his name more than incidentally?
Like, yeah, I mean, yes, it's a weird thing. Like, because the run does sort of say none of this exists without Johnny. But it goes beyond him. And he doesn't, like I said, Danny gets Ghost Rider Danny Ketch Addict, the character story of a man dealing with addiction. Johnny is he's the protagonist. He is 100% the main character
that flaming bitch.
That flaming bitch. He is who you follow throughout. This is his journey to fight the evil angel Zadkiel, but it kind of doesn't matter at all that it's Johnny. It's really about how the Ghost Rider, completely devoid of host, fits into a cosmological mythology involving heaven and hell and the Ghost Riders.
But now
sorry.
Yeah, well, I want to ask you a question because, on that, not anyway. Sorry, directly responding.
Yeah.
Well, okay. You brought up Paradise Lost a few times.
Yep.
Which, great reference. Sounds like you went to a good school and you took either English or film studies. And I want
both.
I want to bring up Mr. K. Vaughn. That the big thing for a while was bringing up Paradise Lost in comics, and we saw it with Mike Carey's Lucifer. But I mean, Mike Carey's Lucifer was literally like every arc was called like Purgatorio and like, you know, Divine Comedy, and like everything was about these bigger ideas. One of the reasons that worked is because when somebody would say, no, this is DC, that can't be capital G, Jesus God, that just can't be. Lucifer would say, but I'm an imagination manifestation. I'm a reflection of your understanding of hell. Why can't that be capital G God? And if I believe and you believe and we all believe, then isn't he real enough for me to fight with him? And like the Marvel universe actually doesn't have that same rule. If you get religious in Marvel, you've made a mistake. You've crossed a line. Religion is for trotting out to make characters seem diverse. It's not for actual explorations of consciousness and identity. And then there's non-sinister versions, like making sure that people feel represented. I just on that topic, you know, like I brought up, you know, Ms. Marvel before. The representation of her identity as a young Muslim woman is very important. But for the most part, when a character shows up Jewish, it's just a punchline. It's just like, yet the Star of David, look at my yarmulke. Like, it's never really like the tenets of being an Israeli person, or the tenets of being a Jewish person, or the tenets of being someone who was raised in the, you know, Jewish community. It's always these kind of big tropey. Thank you. And so I wonder if perhaps by naming God, the devil, angels, heaven and hell, did Ghost Rider push things too far and force Marvel to say, we got people that got, you know, that pray the rosary, that read this book. We gotta pull back.
I only don't think so, because some of the most beautiful writing in the book is Aaron speaking through characters to explain that the Christian overtones or undertones are just because those are the perspectives and faiths of the main characters, and that Ghost Riders from other cultures and other religions are experiencing being a Ghost Rider in a way that aligns with their religion. And that's why part of me is so frustrated with like Percy, for instance, because, okay, we established this is the story of the war between heaven and hell in Jason Aaron's run. Well, that's weird because all of these Ghost Riders are involved and they don't believe in the Christian concept of heaven and hell. So who is Zadkiel to them? We obviously can't get into that by the end of this Aaron run, but those questions still linger and they still remain and they're still relevant to the Ghost Rider mythos. who controls this power? Who is able to give it to other people? And what does that entity look like when it's not a Christian lens? I think Percy would have been the perfect person to answer that question and to explain why, even though it looked Christian the first time we saw it, it is actually beyond that, and it can be seen from so many other lenses. And here, let me show you another one. That is the sort of stuff that I'm saying should have been built upon rather than being paved over.
I'm going to answer that with Benjamin Percy improv. Okay? Yes, and. Could Benjamin Percy have been the person to do that? Yes. And somebody of the Hindu faith would have been required to also be on the writing staff for the issue that showcased it from the Hindu faith.
Oh, I would have, for the next round, I would have completely divorced it from faith, or I would not have it be Percy. I would say,
well, because my thesis though was like, because they said this is heaven and it is the Testament and it is the Bible, not it's God, it's heaven. They said it's the Bible. It is capital G. It is the creation myth. That is who we're killing. We're literally killing God. Capital G. He's dead. I think that is the thing, that because they did that, the only choice is to go in further and address that in the realm of the Marvel Comics universe, capital G, who is infallible within the Bible that they summoned, was defeated. They can't have religion exist within the text without responding to it. And I think that was the mistake. They literally had God defeated. They just can't keep that going in a Christian world.
I agree, but I think building up and away is the way to go. I don't think pushing under. And so, I would say there's ways to say the mechanics of what happened are very difficult to understand, and you experience them through the lens of the cultures and religion that you come from, which is how we had that the first time around. I think, like I said, I would do it one of two ways. Either it is, we start talking way more abstract than Christian ideas of God, the Bible, heaven and hell, or you say, here's what, you hire somebody to write a continuation, a sequel story or an expansion story who is of another faith. And you have that writer say, here is what happened from the perspective of somebody who is not Christian. Because this did happen. This happened for all Ghost Riders. All Ghost Riders were in heaven experiencing, Zadkiel not being able to get rid of the Ghost Rider power. And a bunch of those Ghost Riders were not Christian. Therefore, it had to have been experienced in a different way for them, regardless of what was said. And I just think it's fascinating that possibility even exists. I don't necessarily, we're not going to solve it here, and there's no point in doing so because Marvel's not even acknowledging this anymore. But I think it's so fascinating that the opportunity even exists. And once again, it just speaks to how feature rich the Ghost Rider world is and how ready to go, ready to tackle complex issues. And I think even though this is all really high concept and really out there, I think it can be really relatable and interesting.
I mean, I think that's even part of what I'm surprised by that they did, because even if you experience it in a different way, right? If somebody who doesn't believe in capital G God, but believes in a different creation myth with a different creator and higher being, like Norse, an Asgardian, witnessed it as Zedekiel killed Odin, which then the Romans viewed it as Zedekiel killed Zeus.
Jupiter,
Jupiter, thank you. If they viewed it some other way, then it's actually offensive to every religion, which they need to then acknowledge how every religion would handle that. Yeah. And I think that's a little bit where they're just screwed. I think they've found themselves in kind of all of those questions would be fascinating, and I want those answers. I feel like Marvel's afraid to give them.
Yep.
And so instead, we're just going to keep going back to Maine style horror author men like Benjamin Percy. Because, one of the things I love is that you have really pointed out how it actually is like a barren wilderness Americana rather than like, I feel like when we say Americana horror in modern storytelling, we think about like a little bit Deliverance and a little bit like the Midwest. And I feel like one of the things that you've highlighted is the isolation and sort of cold desolation of the Benjamin Percy ghostwriter era that we're currently reading. That, this era doesn't have. This era is not about isolation. It is about like the hyperconnectivity of ghostwriters, which makes it so different.
It does, and it's that's the thing. I sort of still disagree with you, but I take your point. I feel like I can see ways around it, and I'm being too optimistic because my pitch would get laughed out of the room. But
you're
I still
also being a person who's not religious, and like I live with a man who goes to church 6 days a week. So
right,
if
but
you read this,
I'm also married to a chaplain. Like religion is all around me. I understand that my idea is probably not feasible. I still want to believe in that idea. But even if I set that aside, working with the heaven and hell stuff, the connectivity, that is another huge one that is still lost to us. That we kind of gets flirted with when Aaron returns and puts Ghost Rider into his Avengers, but nobody picks up and runs with. And I can live in a world where, we can't do the heaven and hell story. I can't live in a world where Kushala exists and we're not doing more with Ghost Riders plural.
Well, my point was never we can't do the heaven and hell story. It's just you have to address it as heaven and hell, if that's what you've said, or you have to sweep over it. It's just that, I don't think it can't happen. I don't think that your idea doesn't work. And I don't even know that it's too optimistic. I just, because we've gone so far away from this with the last few years of Ghost Rider, we went right from like heaven and hell to like I'm a dude in LA working on cars. And then Kushala is like kind of vaguely might as well be from an alternate universe. Like where Ghost Rider goes from here is so all over the place. It almost takes it like how we started in 2099 last episode. Not started, but we went to 2099 last episode, and like we went to these bigger than life places, and it's going to be really interesting to go back to them from where we've just been.
And I didn't even get into the fact that in Danny Ketch or Ghost Rider Danny Ketch, he has this techno-pagan occultist friend who immediately I was like, I can connect her to the Ghost Rider 2099 cyberspace ghostland that creates the Ghost Rider 2099, because there's so much techno-magic overlap that I felt like it was so odd to sort of have references to the Ghost Rider in 2099 and yet have it be entirely technological. And immediately I saw that connection. All the long and short of it just being like, it's, as I said before, it's feature rich in the Ghost Rider world. You got options. Even if a particular story might get complex, might be ill-advised to tackle, which I think is the best word I can, the best phrase I can use for the heaven and hell stuff. Setting that aside, there is still a ton of stuff. How a Sorcerer Supreme interacts with being a Ghost Rider, interacts with, a cyberpunk Ghost Rider. This is all still so available, and that we are still defaulting to the guy who you can forget is the non-negotiable protagonist of this epic run that we've covered today, Johnny Blaze. 'Cause he's just whatever. He's just some guy.
Yeah, and we're going to go from here to talking, I think, about kind of like nonstop interesting Ghost Riders is kind of the interesting thing. Robbie's stories are not great. Kushala's stories are not great. But the characters are phenomenal. and we have a few other on the docket. Like we're going to talk about Alejandra Jones and all 11 of her appearances before they just decide she has to die. It's tough being a lady ghostwriter. There's only three of you, and two of you died like immediately. So, we hope for better, but and I do take your point on, I think the heaven and hell stuff is ill-advised. For me, it's only ill-advised because Marvel won't just commit to the bit. But like also with Thor, he's an alien or he's a god, but he's not an energy being from an alternate universe that we saw as a god, so he became a god, so he was always a god. Because then if we ever stopped thinking of him as a god, which we did for several hundred years, he would have stopped being a god. And, they want to have all of their fun. And I think Ghost Rider gets mixed up in there too, where like, if you go by the fact that Jason Aaron has created more Ghost Riders than anybody, including our precious, 1 million BC, he has tried to say a Ghost Rider is a lot of things, but because to him, a Ghost Rider is always a mantle at the end of the day, because that's really the only sandbox Marvel will let him play in. I feel like, I'm walking away from this episode a little more disappointed, I guess, than I thought I was, because I still stand by these stories are like A stories, but I guess ultimately, because nothing was able to come out of them, I'm just left a little cold.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. I mean, I'm so glad we read this, and I can't say I'm so glad that we read the first block of stories. I love doing it with you, but like, I'm not like, oh man, that did it for me. That really got me thinking. That was more like, okay, there's cute little things here to put in your back pocket. This is like the tome that I'm picking up and putting on my shelf, and am so ready to pull back down. If ever given the opportunity, I just want to pull the whole thing down and be like, and this is good. We're going to talk about this and this and this. But I'm also pulling it down sort of in wistful sadness, like, but come on, guys, talk about this thing. Talk about this character. Reference this. And it just is a little disappointing that people can't get their shit together around Ghost Rider.
A character who, more than anything, just deserves the chance to have his rightful place in the Marvel Pantheon as a character that's existed since the early 70s.
Yeah.
He predates your Deadpools and your Venoms and a lot of the fellow ilk from the I'm the badass corner of the Marvel Universe. Yeah, do I think Gabriel Luna, beautiful, talented actor, is Ghost Rider? No, but I think he's Robbie Reyes. Do I think Nick Cage is Ghost Rider? Yeah, I think he's about as goofy as a 1970s stuntman praying to Satan to have the power to stop his stepdad, vaguely, from dying in a motorcycle stunt, only to wind up a guy with a flaming head. Yeah, I think Nick Cage is on par with that. But do I think he's what people want for Ghost Rider? Not so much. So, I find myself in a position where I'm excited about what we have coming to talk about, but I don't even know that I'm excited about the future after that.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm excited about the future. That's the big thing, and we can't ever move past that. But I am like, can we get Lily Gladstone as Kushala in the MCU? Like, do we have options here? What's going on? I still so believe in this property. And I think we're done with Gabriel Luna, but I really believe in Robbie. And setting aside all the stuff, all the potential that I see in what we covered today, I still am like ready for a world where Johnny kind of falls by the wayside and Robbie gets to be truly the all-writer, not just in the Aaron story, but the all-writer that comes in and helps to establish this new canon that can kind of integrate some of this stuff, if not go full bore on all of it. So, that's like how I'm kind of marrying these two together and being like, even though this is the one that I think really has my heart, the stuff that's coming up, I still am passionate about, am excited to cover, and has produced so much stuff that I love.
I just want to point out that somehow in all of our conversations, we never once brought up that Ghost Rider dates Karen Page for a while in the 70s.
Yeah, I mean, because what can we do with it now?
So thank you, Tori, for bringing that up.
Truly. That's another one. I mean, like just another piece of Ghost Rider lore that like, because, Karen doesn't really come back from the dead. And so wherever Ghost Rider go, if Johnny Blaze was king of hell during the Aaron run, I feel like
he might have put a little Daredevil rider in her.
Come on.
Devil Rider? I would love that.
Well, I
Karen
mean,
Page is the Devil Rider.
Dark Devil? Like, we got options here.
Man, it would be really funny, and this is obviously just too stupid, but Elizabeth Tyne should put on a Karen Page mask, and Karen should just be back.
Sold. Done.
And then she has the mask power going forward.
Right.
And Elizabeth Tyne can just come back some other way. Not my problem.
Yeah.
So, all right. I think we're there.
Okay. Yeah, we're there.
Okay, let's park the bikes.
Yeah.
Kevo, do you feel like you learned anything about Flaming Skulls?
I learned that they had a convention and that you guys have a lot of complicated feelings about it.
God, that isn't even their cool convention.
Nope,
That's
not.
That's their that's their heaven hell convention. No. They have
you
race.
Love a convention story. Oh, a race, and you love a race story. You love wacky races.
I do. There is a legitimate Ghost Riders wacky race with the Avengers through hell.
Then we get two wacky races. We get the Avengers one, and we get the Percy one, where everybody shows up on the bike,
including a bunch of people from the 90s. Somehow.
Yeah, it's real great.
I like it. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I'm almost done with my 99-cent Arizona. Evidently, the owner is like, I'm rich enough. Don't charge more than 99 cents a can. And I'm just like, cool. I wish comics were like that.
We're rich enough. Just give. I honestly think that's where we're going, honestly.
The problem I am finding is that I can't bring myself to pay $4.99 a book.
Yeah.
It's not that the artists and the writers aren't worth it. It's that Marvel isn't putting enough story in each book, and I'm being told I need to buy 37 of them to make a picture, and it's getting too hard.
And I'm also not going to pay for incomplete stories. I'll buy trades, especially if I hear that they're good. But right now, we're seeing so much stuff just get dropped when it doesn't work for whatever reason. So I'm not willing to invest in falling in love with an idea that then, at best will get the mini, but not the 3 minis that the writer had originally intended to tell the whole story.
A mini, 2-issue thing, and then a 1-shot in an annual with someone else's name on it.
It's none of this is the creative's fault. Everybody's taking the contracts they get, writing the stories that they're able to. I twice a day end up saying to Nico, yeah, that's great. I'm really disappointed in editorial. I'm really disappointed in publishing. I'm really disappointed that the people who had the power to shepherd a story to completion just didn't do it for a myriad reasons, but none of them are really acceptable to me as a person who has to choose whether or not to spend the $4.99. For now, it's a pass. We'll talk about it when we're closer to completion, and I know if I'm looking at, I'll even take a mediocre, fully finished 4-issue, like all of these Fall of X 4 or 5-issue stories. I was happy to pay for that Jean Grey one. I knew we were getting 4 issues. I knew it was Wheezy. I had full trust. But I'm concerned about the story that Wheezy teed up for Jean Grey and these coming months, because I don't know that story will get properly completed.
And I'm obviously not trying to, I'm the one who's secretly messaging being like, hey guys, I think we're good to end the project.
I know. Yeah. We gotta close her out. Actually
though, no, I have a really serious question that I feel like you honestly put on the table, and there's no way to get away from it.
Yeah.
I'm no longer buying omnibus editions the same way I used to. I feel like when I was buying omnis at first, it was the shit that matters. And like that kind of got annoying because sometimes I felt like there were pretty consequential issues. There's that issue of Iron Fist. It's like Iron Fist number 9 introduces Sabretooth. He fights Iron Fist until issue number 12, and then issue number 14, the X-Men show up because Jean Grey and Colleen Wing are roommates and they're hanging out. So like, and Storm gets a pie in the face, and like it's something we talked about.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was a huge joke on the show for like 2 years, and that was not included in the Omni edition because it's not important. But it's actually kind of a magical, like that 5 issues of Iron Fist is about 100 pages. I know that 100 pages jacks the price up $10, but I would pay the extra $10 to have that 5 issues of Iron Fist by Claremont, 4 of which feature X-Men villains or characters. So then as the omnibus editions go on, all of a sudden it's everything. And that's cool. Because like you and I, our relationship with Spellbound, and if Tori's still in the chat, Tori's relationship with Spellbound, she is actually a spellbinder and not a mutant. So she would get it. But that being included in New Mutants Omnibus Volume 3 is kind of a joke because they're in it for 4 pages and it has no lasting consequence on anything canon.
And it's just the issues that they're in. It's not the 6-issue
mini. Right. But so then I'm at a point where like, I feel like a lot of things can be 1 volume omnibus edition at 1,000 pages for $125. And instead they're selling me 2 volumes at $100 a piece with 12 issues I don't need.
Yeah.
And my question for you becomes, we're talking about the value of $4 and $5 on individual books, but how do you feel about, each time they add one of these minis? Like if you pick up the dark web omnibus,
yeah,
it's going to have lead up issues. It's going to have all of the books issues. And then it's going to have the Fallout issues, things like Dark X-Men, maybe even Hollow's Eve. That one is all about your interests, but what about something that isn't?
That becomes really complicated. If it has it's a balancing act at all times. If it has enough stuff that I want, if it has a story that I want, will I suck it up for, if there's 2 to 4 issues in there where I'm like, I don't really care about that, sure. But if it's 6, if it's like a third to half and that's what I'm paying for, yeah, then it's a no.
It's a no for me, dog.
Yeah. It has become a much more investigative game to figure out if I really want what's in there. Like, honestly, at the end of the day, I bought it because I love her more than anything and I love her iconography and everything. The Phoenix Omni,
and volume 2 is a mess, bro. I know you.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like the Phoenix Omni series. That's because the other part of it is like sometimes you're really not buying it for one. You're buying it because you're about to get more. And the Phoenix one, that was a big turning point for me. That was that was a no. So it's this whole thing becomes a constant. Hey there, because hi to all of us. It becomes a constant sort of recalculation to figure out, is everything on my shelf as I desired and what I can afford?
God, what I can afford is really beginning to affect how I see these things. When I thought I was buying Wolverine in, 1, 2, 3, 4 volume, the sequential numbering.
Yeah.
Sure. Then there's the Mark Millar volume. Okay. Then there's the Jason Aaron volumes. Okay. Then there's Wolverine and the X-Men. Okay. It's not collecting things, the regular Wolverine omnibus line is not collecting things like Wolverine Max and The Best There Is, which, my final thoughts on this, and then I'm good to go to credits, right?
Yeah.
So everyone else should say their feels to get them out. I was at one time very close with the editor on Wolverine The Best There Is and Wolverine Max, right? She was the hardest working editor I had known at any job on any level of editorial, right? anything you could do. She would put in till like midnight, 1 a.m. She never gave up to make sure those books were perfect. Those books were nightmares. And it's because the writer or artist were a hot property. And so editorial was told to treat that person a certain way. So then talent management treated editorial a certain way. So then, the big wigs were like, oh, well, I heard that person's big from talent management. So you guys got to straighten up down there in editing. Sometimes no one even knows why somebody is saying that's the rule, do that. But it's the rule now, and we're all doing it, and no one knows why. I have to wonder how many, there's a book Tom DeFalco published called Comic Creators On, and it's a series of books, and there's like comic creators on Fantastic Four, comics creators on Avengers, comics creators on X-Men, and I have this book that's like, 20-page interviews with 20 people. And it says, it's Claremont talking about how they wouldn't let me do this, and those are kind of common stories. But then it's stuff like Grant Morrison being like, oh, yeah, no, I knew I was off of X-Men 6 months before I left because I knew I was not getting along with Joe Quesada. Oh, my God. I cannot imagine those sorts of ghostwriter stories because the amount of ghostwriter that must be on the floor, the amount of editors that must have stayed in those offices till 2 a.m. to get the book out. And, it's an imaginary system of people telling them they're doing wrong. So, is it marketing told them to change this? And that's why it's weird? There's just no end to wondering how strong Ghostwriter could be if somebody just looked at it and said, this is the book this year.
I think that is a kind of perfect note to end on.
Well, I could not be more excited to have spent this last 2 hours with the amazing likes of Bruno Campos, Tasty Cakes, and of course, our very own queen of comics, Tori Sheehan. If this was Aliens, she would both be Ripley in the construction suit and the alien queen, right? So wonderful spending this time with all of you. As for the show, you can always check the show out at X is for Show all over your socials. Kevo, where can everybody find you if they want to know more about how little you want to talk about Ghost Rider?
Hey, I enjoyed absorbing all of it. No, really, truly. It is fascinating, and I agree so much with everything you guys are saying about what potential there is for this franchise and how, the fact that it is this mythos and pantheon of Ghost Riders, there's so much potential for that to pull from for the MCU. And it's just money they're leaving on the table. And so I really hope that they pick it up, to quote some of our favorite music. And until then, this has been so much fun to get to know all of this better. And if any of you want to see part 1 of this coverage, we have the link in the comments for you to check out. We also have a lot of other really awesome coverage for you to check out over this holiday weekend, including the debut of RuPaul's Glam Slam. And we put together a lovely little broadcast for all of you. If you are looking for any sort of viewing material for your holiday, if you need an escape from your family, or you're just bored because can't eat all day, can you? We've got plenty of stuff and plenty of awesome recommendations for you. So check out all of our other stuff as well.
Kevo, I could not think of a better recommendation than taking a little bit of time to enjoy some of the Thanksgiving stuff we have programmed for tomorrow. So if you wanted something to put on in the background, just to listen, check out that awesome Thanksgiving recommendations list. I also want to point out that Tasty Cake, a commenter extraordinaire, said, I saved $5 by not buying a comic, but I did buy a disco ball from Walmart for the same price. One of those is a pulp magazine that you can enjoy when you pick it up, and one of those shines its glorious light on you wherever you are in the room. So pick it up. 500 pennies well spent. But speaking of well spent money, I can think of nobody I would rather pay for $5. I didn't have the joke, but I would buy your Ghost Rider comic. That's what I was trying to say.
I was hoping we were going with prostitution. Okay,
well,
fine.
I'll
write the Ghost Rider comic.
I don't have to pay for that. You're my dude. So like,
Sure.
I'm just saying, suggested market price, people.
well, until I get to buy a comic from you with art by
Yes.
Tori and Kevo, where can everybody find you online?
You can find me at TK Elemental.
As for me, you guys can always find me all over this crazy network doing all of this crazy ghost writing that I love so much, as well as talking about TV, movies, music, games, and more. This Saturday, I think we have one of our classic games this Saturday.
Yeah.
Sunday is TV. And then we're going to be bringing you some really cool comic coverage throughout December. So if you love our comic stuff, we have some amazing comics for you coming up. I love Tori bringing up that she was cooking tonight while doing this. I actually recommend listening to music by this guy, Brian Transow, BT. If you're looking for something to listen to this holiday season, just, maybe put on a little bit of, my music. Sure.
I was going to say, when you
guy.
said this guy, I was like, yes, listen to music by Nico.
I was going to talk about my favorite album about being grateful, but yeah, listen to me instead. SoundCloud.
You talked about your favorite album being Grateful and BT Music on our Turkey Day broadcast. So go click over to that right now, especially if you're cooking and still need stuff to listen to. Our goal as a broadcast is to be something that you can listen to while you cook. Genuinely, we just want to be a chill, fun broadcast for you to listen to and learn from and enjoy.
Well, until we come back to impart more wisdom and eat more potatoes, 3 things. Number 1, stay safe. Number 2, be brave. Number 3, evolve daily. And I guess number 4 is secretly enjoy your Thanksgiving. And we'll talk to you guys on Saturday, right after Thanksgiving.
Yes.